I am so excited to welcome everybody back to Lessons Earned in DE&I, Conversations with, and today I'm so excited to tell you that I have Keisha Underwood, the get of all gets.
Hello.
She is the president of Indy SHRM. She's senior VP of HR at Kittle Property Group. She's been in HR for over 20 years, and she also makes homemade cards, which I'm super excited to see pictures of. Now, I'm not going to tell you that she'll send them to you, but that's for LinkedIn to figure out. So I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So we know that our purpose is to talk about DEI in practical, relatable ways. And as we were talking earlier, Keisha and I, it's kind of talking about how to bring in leadership into diversity conversations. And I really liked what you were saying about stories.
Yes. Yeah, stories are what kind of breaks the ice, I think, for people. If you can connect on somewhat of an emotional level, that can make all the difference in the world. Not everyone, necessarily invites that sometimes, but that simply means that you need to carry on the conversation a little bit longer because you can get people there. And once you've established a basic foundation of trust, it can take you a lot of different places, a lot of good places.
When you talk about stories, do you mean taking that leap to share your own story?
It could be your own story. I think if it's one that, has changed you or has had a big impact on your life, and you're willing and comfortable to share, absolutely. It could be a story that you heard from a friend, a story that you heard, on a podcast or an article you read. If you can just connect with someone on more than just a surface level, that's really all you need. You may find that as you start to tell your story, they've got the same story or something very similar. And that's a perfect opportunity for you to engage, to ask them about that story. And when you're having those conversations, you're building up to an opportunity to have maybe a conversation later, because not everybody is comfortable talking about every subject. So it does take time to establish a place where you can begin that dialogue. You can't just jump in, head first, because sometimes you do more damage than good. So you just have to be very mindful of not only the person, but the stories that you're sharing, and be comfortable if it is your personal story, having that story out there.
Well, I know that can be hard, especially if you don't feel like you can bring your whole self to work. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about retaining, because it's not just about recruiting a diverse workforce, right? I think sometimes we forget how to retain a diverse workforce. Yes. And that feeling of inclusion that, Verna Myers says is you've been invited to the dance, now you feel like you can.
Yes.
And how can we do that? How can we bring our whole selves to work?
I would say the best place to start is to find someone within your workplace that you are comfortable with. There's always at least one. And that person can probably help you navigate beyond that point. If there is a conversation that you're wanting to have with a particular person, that person that you've connected with can help you determine what's the best approach with that person. Or maybe they can start the conversation for you. So I would say if you are having a difficult time having a hard conversation, reach out to your peers. Reach out to them first. Build kind of your network, if you will, that support, so that if you do have a tough conversation, let's say it didn't go well, you've got that person to go to and talk about it. And hopefully, that person is one that can accept the situation for what it is, and not go on, these crazy rants and get you more upset than you already were, but someone who's level-headed, and who can give you perspective. So I guess it's really more than just finding someone in your workplace, but someone who balances you out, if you will. Kind of a compliment to you. When you go to 10, you know that they can bring you back down to like 3 or 4.
And I'm just going to throw a plug out for Indy SHRM, because we have great folks at Indy SHRM and great peers that you can reach out to. And I think that if you're not comfortable with starting that diversity and inclusion conversation, talk to folks who are.
Yes.
And who've done it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about a few people that, you'll be speaking with that I don't know, and making that introduction. I know I could benefit from that because the companies that they're with look very different from mine. And so they can definitely offer a different perspective. And I am probably one of the biggest advocates of networking. You can tell any of the students at the Indy SHRM annual student conference, like what I'm always saying, and it's like network, network, network. Because you'll get the most information when you least expect it. So yeah, absolutely. Reach out to Indy SHRM.
With inclusion, I think it's important, and you're talking about the natural thing to vent and the natural outlets. So that's HR, right?
Yes.
If you're in diversity or if you've been in HR, there's no closed door.
No, there isn't. I welcome it. I'm a conversationalist. So I tend to be kind of that person, I guess, that people go to. As I was saying earlier, you have to be, very mindful on how you navigate those conversations, because sometimes we can find out more than we want to know. But, I'm rewarded when I see other people, happy or overcoming some concern or, issue that they've had. But yeah, HR, we're the therapists. We're the brother, the sister, the mom, the dad, the babysitter. we're all of that. The aunt, the grandmother.
It's absolutely all of that is so true. And I know that we were talking about, times in our career, whether we've seen other folks talked over, spoken over, made to feel uncomfortable, and what can we do? Because I know that some people aren't comfortable saying anything.
Yeah.
Because maybe they don't want to embarrass the person that it's happening to. I didn't want to make it a bigger deal.
Right.
But we also know that silence is acceptance.
Yes.
So what do you think about bystander training or modeling or exhibiting that behavior?
That's a fantastic question. Bystander training. I mean, that would be fantastic. If training doesn't exist and someone is listening right now and, maybe they had a recent encounter where they didn't agree with something or someone talked over and they just kind of let it go, but it's been eating up at them. Like I was saying before, say something to someone, whether that's your boss, whether that's HR, because they can help start that dialogue. But I do think that giving people ideas and tools on how to make a statement, say something, is probably one of the best things that you can do, because if someone knows that if I'm in this situation, a good comment to say is this, then they almost kind of can separate themselves from the statement, if you will, because it's like someone told me to say this. So you're almost like repeating what somebody told you, but still getting your point across, if that makes sense. It makes you feel like you're not kind of in it by yourself. So yeah, I think tips, statements are key. That would be very helpful.
Well, I had read this study about Starbucks that when they first started, I was alive, but I don't remember. Starbucks were not every corner. But they were having a retention issue, and they actually trained folks with sentences on how to respond to customer matters. So how do I respond if something's not right?
Yes.
And it actually helped because folks didn't have to feel like they were struggling or they were going to make somebody angry if they said the wrong thing. So being able to provide a script to people, so whether that is modeling for HR,
Yes,
whether it's putting it in your handbook, and I love all the training all the time. So I think bystander training is necessary. Some people think it's a luxury. However, for the purposes of today, I think I have heard, which I love, is if you're seeing a situation at work that's making you uncomfortable, drop a book. Drop something, because it stops the situation and everybody shifts focus.
yes.
But definitely if you see something, and again, that's building that culture of inclusion, because I can write all the policies for days and days. I'm an HR person and a lawyer, so don't threaten me with a good time. But if it is not within the culture, so we're not seeing HR model it, we're not seeing managers model it, we're going to have a hard time. So make sure that you can at least display some of those sentences around different places and in different policies. Absolutely.
For sure. For sure. And that's actually probably going to be one of my takeaways from today's conversation, is to equip my team. I mean, my team's HR, they're pretty good at it. But maybe, working with my team to identify what some of those statements are so that we can share those with staff. How do you respond to something while at the same time maybe diffusing the high energy of the situation? Because that's usually what makes people afraid, is when the energy is like really out of control. Sometimes your natural tendency is to stay out of it. How do you overcome that and kind of say your piece, if you will?
Well, I'm excited. You're going to have to share the sentences with me, because sometimes my sentences are not as polite as a de-escalation. So I'm really excited to hear what that sounds like. But that being said, I am so excited that you were here. I love this conversation. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. I'll come back anytime.
Great. Thank you.